Hey guys, welcome to Right Side Patriot Updates. In today's video, we're going to be interviewing Dr. Scott. Dr. Scott, how you doing today?
Hey man, how's it going for you?
Pretty good, pretty good. My first question for you is, will Gesara compliant countries have a government that is similar to the United States?
Yes and no. I think that I may use Iran as an example. When we look at, if I get this wrong, so please don't, you guys will get all mad if you're a history buff, but pre-Shah of Iran, beaches were filled with men and women on it, and normal circumstances with women walking around. As soon as the Shah got in, Ayatollah, all this other stuff, when the radicals kind of got in, you didn't see the exact same government structure. They're not going to be like America, but they're going to be in a fashion that would be, peaceful. We're not going to agree with them. They're not going to be constitutional, but they're going to have their own constitution, their own free kind of ideals. And so, but there's going to be some chaos with that, because you just don't like flip a switch and make everything go perfect. It's kind of like, everyone's learning a new game, and it's a complicated game. If you've ever picked up like a video game or something like that on your computer, and you pick it up and you're like, wow, this is complicated. It's kind of what's going to happen. There's going to be fits and starts in there too. So I would say yes, but people are going to be struggling. It's kind of my reason for my book for Revelations of the Red Pill. I almost forgot the book. Is there's a process of death and rebirth that's happening. And when you go through your death, which the world's in their death rows, it changes things. And I don't want to get too far off on this one, but I'll just kind of mention that right now, today's the 23rd of December, and it's pretty heavy on my mind, because 3 years ago I was in a hospital in Denver, and they were giving me a DNR, and they didn't think I was going to survive, especially that first night on the 22nd, or first day of the 22nd. You can go on my YouTube channel and watch it, but I'm not even there. And they were trying to do little deep dives on my body just to get me to wake up, and I wouldn't wake up much. In a COVID timeframe, they would have turned off the machines. And I think about I've been through my own personal death. Most people haven't. They're scared of it. And I always go, to live as Christ, to die as gain. And when I say that, I'm not like, just whipping it out there. One of the things that hit me at that same time frame is that there was a pastor, worship pastor kind of guy that they lost their 3-year-old child at the same time frame. And the time frame, I'm 53 years old, and months later, I'm learning about, at the exact same time frame, this little baby, they delayed on the funeral arrangements, and they delayed on the funeral arrangements, and they were just praying for her to wake up. And I remember going to the Lord, and I didn't understand what that survival instinct, that trauma kind of stuff happens. And I was like, hey man, I'd give my life over for that 3-year-old. I mean, I'm a 53-year-old guy. Who cares if I die? This 3-year-old, man, this would be amazing for the church. And I just had massive survivor guilt. And I didn't understand it until that moment in time. And I think the world is going through that right as we speak. It's foundational for some of the information that we have here. In Proverbs 13:22, it says, a rich man leaves inheritance for his grandchildren, but the sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. And I think that is some of the basis of understanding what Nesara Gesara is happening. But it's going to be chaotic for people. And I know, I think about the isms that we talk about with governments, and a lot of those are going away. So that's just my initial thoughts on that part.
So obviously, we're going to get a new government when Nesara rolls in. So what's our new government going to look like when Nesara rolls in?
Well, when I was growing up, I mean, you had to read the Constitution. Any patriot who hasn't read the Constitution and the Articles of Confederation needs to spend some time going and reading it. I mean, it's not that long of a document. It's very worthwhile. The reality is the bones of the structure are there. Ezekiel 37 talks about the bones in the dry land. And that's a prophecy of Israel in 1948 that reclaimed the land that was barren with that too. In essence, we are seeing that kind of reboring, or being reborn again, something that John 3, Nicodemus didn't understand. The reality is, with America, we already have the seeds of that. The seeds are planted in patriots. And I think as we look at that circumstance, we've got to see that the constitutional republic is there. It's already there, and it was killed off. The Constitution that we know was killed off in around 1871. At that same time frame, we have the 14th Amendment that was passed as well. But the deep state was kind of born in that time frame 150 years ago, and we're just pulling that thing out of the mud. It's there. We're just pulling it out of the mud. So, in essence, that's why we always say Trump would be the 19th president after, I think it's Grant, right after the Civil War. So we have to see that kind of government. And I study, history. There's a way to understand this a little bit. It's a book by Rodney Howard Brown. Really recommend you get it on Audible kind of version, because it gets this great reader to do this. But it's The Killing of Uncle Sam. So The Killing of Uncle Sam. Go read it, more likely listen to it, and you'll see some of the features of what world government and our government's kind of look like with that.
What is Nesara going to do to minimum wage laws?
Good point. I think that the reality with minimum wage, I chafe at minimum wage. If your goal is to reach a minimum, then what you're saying to me is that that's all you're hoping for to attain to. And you might be going, well, you don't know what it feels like to work for minimum wage. I have worked for it many times. I have, as a business owner, I paid myself less than minimum wage at times. So don't tell me that I don't know that. And I've been in, at 95% debt to income ratios because of the business. So again, don't tell me I don't know that. But when we think of this idea of $15 an hour, that is this commonality that we see, I go, first off, it's unsustainable for these businesses to be able to do. And every time they've done that, like in Seattle or Portland or wherever, what's happened is they backed off the number of hours. So when you look at the effective, 1099, or sorry, the W-2 response, that person actually made less in the year. So minimum wage we need to have some kind of basis of that. We don't need to be, hurting. But I think if you have a competitive strategy in businesses, a even playing field of listen, compete better, or you're going to perform. I think we're going to go to a performance-based economy that, hey, if you perform, you do well. And people are not used to that. They're used to like doing the minimum. And I would just say, break that in that mentality, break the idea of minimum wage. Don't be thinking that way. Again, there are going to be, the government's going to have some minimums. I don't know what the number is. We're going to be helping the ultra poor, the Social Security, disability. Don't think that's not going to be taken care of. Okay. You're 68 years old. My father-in-law is 88 years old. He can't work anymore. We need to have a much more higher wage for them. The range is around $3,000 to $5,000 a month for those kind of people. But keeping someone in poverty is bad for a system. I see it here in the Tulsa area. There's this place called Quick Trip, and I see people as they get their paychecks, their disability, their whatever paycheck kind of thing, their welfare checks, they're at Quick Trip buying all kinds of crap. Again, that's the minimum idea, and that's the stuff that we kind of need to break in that way. But again, there are going to be some levels of minimums, but I don't have a clue. And I think mandated any of that stuff is a bad idea. So.